guys, Wemi here. So today I'm here to share my secret with you. And before I get into it, I figured I'd let you guys know about my inspiration behind doing this video. I've been watching Benji and Yolonda's channel, and they've inspired me to let you guys into my life just a little bit more and let you guys get to know a little bit more about me. If you want to know more about them and their story and their life, check out their channel. So, what is my secret? My secret is that I have sickle cell. Now, some of you may or may not know what that is, so I guess it's my job to educate you as to what sickle cell is. So I'm gonna give you guys a scientific version, because if you want that, you can easily Google it and get the science breakdown. But I'm gonna give you guys the breakdown of what it does for me. So pretty much, sickle cell is a inherited blood disorder. There's kind of debate right now about what's called a disorder or called a disease. So whichever term you currently use or choose not to use, I'm going to say both. It's a disorder and a disease. I can't say that word today, guys. Disorder, disease, disorder, disease. Okay. So pretty much, yeah, so it's a disorder that affects the blood. It's something that you're born with. You inherited it through your parents, and it's from your parents having the SS hemoglobin and AS hemoglobin or whatever. So anyway, there are two versions. There's sickle cell trait and full-blown sickle cell anemia. I currently have, or I do have, sickle cell anemia. And so what that does is my blood cells don't, they're kind of sick. I guess that's where the name comes from. But they don't get a lot of oxygen. They, like normal blood cells tend to live about 120 days or so, versus my blood cells that live about like 15 to 20, depending on the month. So they have very short lifespan. So because of that, my bone marrow works a little bit more than most people, because it has to produce a lot more blood cells and more frequently. Also with that, because the blood cells are sickled, normal blood cells are shaped like an O. I think that's a pretty good O, right guys? Yeah, shaped like an O, but mine is kind of shaped like a bean. I don't know how to shape a bean with my hand. You guys know what a bean looks like. So my blood cells are shaped like beans, and because of that, it makes it a little bit harder for them to flow through my body, especially the joints, because you know how your joints are, they do that. So what happens is when they're flowing through the joints, because they're bean shaped, they kind of get caught on each other sometimes, and then they clog up and stop flowing. So how does that happen? That happens when the blood cells become starved of oxygen. So they become starved because you're not hydrated, just life stress, and they start freaking out. The blood cells are like, hey, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. But pretty much that's kind of what happens to the blood cells. So for me personally, my experience, I tend to get sick, or my blood cells clog up when I'm not staying hydrated, when I am in extreme temperatures, so extreme cold or extreme heat, when I'm highly stressed, and because I'm a woman, that time of the month. So those are my triggers as to what gets me sick. So what does it mean to be sick with sickle cell? Being sick with sickle cell means pain. That's really the main definition of living with sickle cell is pain. So just imagine if blood's flowing through and like it's just chilling, kind of like traffic, right? Cars are driving by, and all of a sudden, one car stops. And then it's just a domino effect, kind of like a car crash happens, right? So the freeway gets clogged up, no one's going to, people are pissed off. Pretty much the same thing with the blood cells. They get pissed off and your joints lock up in a sense, and you feel severe pain. The way that I usually express the pain is kind of like having a hammer hit you on your joints, just like that. And every now and then it might like calm down. Maybe it's like one blood cell squeezes through, but then the rest of them just hammering away. And that's what the pain feels like. So I personally tend to we have our sickle crises is what they're called, is when you are sick. When your blood cells lock up, when they're dehydrated, you fall into a crisis. And a crisis is when you get sick, when your blood cells lock up and they're not flowing for whatever reason. And that could be usually like it's in your arms. Those are the most common areas, the joints. So your arms, your knees, often the back and the stomach. And then we have chest crises. And those are the main different types of crises that tend to exist. So that kind of covers the sickness area and getting sick. And that tends to happen for people at different times. There are people who get sick like regularly. People get sick, sporadically. It really depends for people. As I explained to you guys earlier, I told you what my triggers are. So usually at that time of the month, I'm very careful. I try not to go outside when it's too cold, because then that's going to doubling up my risk factors. So I don't expose myself to those things as much as possible. Which is why you'll find me in like the summertime. I always, have water with me in the summer. Even now, like winter, I always have a bottle of water with me to stay hydrated and keep my blood and keep everything flowing with oxygen. And also not staying in places with low oxygen levels, because breathing in oxygen helps the blood flow. So if you're not breathing oxygen because it's humid outside, that doesn't help. So those are kind of the sick aspects of things. I think I kind of covered that. How often do I get sick, if you guys are curious about that? For me, it's interesting. I've gone through like a roller coaster ride with my sickness. Actually, let me give you guys some history behind me. I discovered that I had sickle cell at the age of 10. My parents didn't know, I didn't know, nobody knew, which is crazy because you're born with it. So for some reason, while I was in Nigeria, between year 1 and year 10 of my life, I wasn't getting sick. And if I was getting sick, I wasn't noticing it. Like, they were probably attributed to other things, so it didn't really like seem odd that, I was in pain. But when we moved to Canada, the first year that me and my family were here, I think it was within like a month of being in Canada. We came in August, so around October, I got sick. And this was a 10-year-old kid, and I was in so much pain. And I was explaining to my mom, I'm in pain. Like, I can't move my arms. It hurts to walk. It hurts to use my arms. Everything just hurt. Like, I was just crying. And she couldn't figure it out. So, I took the Advil and tried to go to sleep. And, as a mom, she blamed it on the weather and said I wasn't dressing warm and I'm not doing this and I ain't doing that. So eventually, after 3 days of me being in pain and crying on the bed every day, we went to the doctors. And, he kind of gave me a little bit, like, stronger pain medications. And then he's just like, do you have sickle cell? And we're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's that? So he's like, I'm going to run some tests on you. So he did a blood test, came back, and was like, yeah, you have sickle cell. So from that moment on, my mom, mother mode kicked in. She did some research and started figuring out what to do to keep me from getting sick. So she did a great job of that until I hit grade 8. And, I started being a big girl and all that, put on my big girl pants. And I was like, I got this, Mom. No, I didn't. So in my, in grade 8, I guess, what school? Like, how many months of school? 8 months, I think? 8 or 9 months of school. I probably missed about, like, 6 of it because I was sick, like, every month. Without fail, I was getting sick. And what was happening was my period was starting to really kick in, and I was starting to get sick, but I didn't really connect the two things. And I was also eating a lot of sweets, which is another trigger of mine, is eating too many sweet things. I don't know why, but my body just doesn't like sweets. That's too much of it at once anyway. So I was at a point where, I was just doing too much for what I was working with, and I was getting sick a lot. And it was funny, it was like my pastor's wife. One day she's like, have you ever thought about, she's like, does it come, on your period? And I was like, yeah, I get sick a lot. Like, I'm usually in a lot of pain. I'm in the hospital. And when I go to the hospital, when I get sick, I'm usually in for a week. So it's a full week where I can't do a thing. Like, I'm knocked out. I'm high as a kite on morphine and codeine. Like, I'm out. So she's like, you know what? Next month, when your periods come in, I challenge you to avoid sweets, like a week before and a week after. So that's 3 weeks. Like, really? I wasn't happy about that. But she said, just try it for a month. And I tried it, and guys, I did not get sick. So that was just like, I'm down. I'm doing this. Like, I love sweet things, but I don't like the hospital that much. So I'm just going to stop eating sweets as much as possible. So once I discovered that trigger of myself, I was able to stay away from the hospital much longer. I wasn't going to the hospital as much. So that was kind of a good period for me. And then, your body changes as time goes on. So learning that was great, and that still applies to me till today. Like, I don't do too much sweets. Not because I don't want to, but because it's really not worth it for me. Now, pause and explain to you guys what the hospital visits are like. So, hospital visits are interesting in my neck of the woods. When I was away at university, for example, they didn't have a hospital that had a sickle cell department. So because of that, a lot of the healthcare professionals didn't know how to treat sickle cell patients. So the first time that I went in there, I was just like, I'm sick. Like, I knew, like, this is, you know, I was, what, like 21 at this point, so I knew the routine. I knew what was going to happen. And so that day, went to the hospital with my boyfriend at the time. He took me there, and we got there, and they were like, okay. They put me on a bed. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, I have sickle cell, so I need morphine, I need oxygen, and I need IV. Like, let's get it going. And so this nurse came in, and usually they'll have the morphine or codeine, whatever, running through your IV, and they'll feed it to you for a couple of days to get the pain down while your blood kind of starts to flow again with the IV and the oxygen. So this nurse came, guys, and she was just crazy. She took a syringe, just like a, you know, normal syringe filled, and she had it filled with morphine. Grabbed my arm and gave me a shot. Gave me a straight shot, and I was just like, this isn't how this works. Didn't put me on IV, nothing. Just gave me a straight shot of morphine. 2 hours later, she came by. She was like, all right, the drug certificate, you're good now, go home. And my boyfriend at the time, like, I was high as a kite, guys, so I was just like, this isn't right. So I couldn't really speak up for myself, but he knew what was up, and he was just like, this isn't how it usually works. Like, she should be, you know, here a bit longer. You should be admitting her to a hospital, taking her to an actual room for a couple of days. Lady was just like, nah, she's good. She can go home. We're both like, okay. So get up from the bed. I could barely walk. I'm like leaning on him. Threw up everywhere because I had way too much morphine in my system. He got me in the car. We drove back to my place, and my mom said, all right, let's go to the hospital. So went back to a hospital in Toronto, downtown Toronto, where they have a full sickle cell department. And, you know, they took care of me. So that's just something that happens sometimes. Is I have to be aware of where I am at all times and what's available. So I can't go to hospitals that don't know how to take care of me because they don't know how to take care of me. And that's not good. Because just think about it. If your blood's not flowing, if it gets far up enough, that's the brain. And then blood doesn't flow to your brain, and that's how you have a stroke. And I'd like to live long. So I don't put myself in that situation as much as possible. Whenever I can, I try to get to a major city hospital because I know they'll at least have one person who knows what they're doing. So just side note about that was, yeah, that's the hospital visits. And as I said, if I'm in there, I'm in there usually for a week until the pain subsides and the blood starts flowing again and my hemoglobin level climbs back up, then they let you out. Another common thing of sickle cell is people tend to have transfusions. I've been blessed. I haven't had any transfusions yet, and I'm grateful to God for that. Many people do, and many people also have their spleens removed because for some reason the spleen and sickle cell they don't like each other. So another common thing is having your spleen removed, which again, I am grateful to God that I haven't had that either. Further in my journey, now that, you know, I'm an older woman and life is kicking in, I'm getting more used to things, it's just being aware of things like work. Because it's hard to go into a place and be like, hey, you know, thanks for giving me a job, but I have sickle cell, so here's the deal. It's very hard to do that, and it's one of the hardest things that I find living with sickle cell is having a career. Because you cannot predict when you're going to get sick. You just can't. You never know. Sometimes you can do everything right, and for some reason your body is just like, I'm not feeling it this month, and it just shuts down. And then what? And it's funny because, you know, Dave will tell you guys his side of the story. He's experienced many, and it'll happen randomly. Like, there was a day we were just like, we were hanging out. Everything was good. We went out shopping during the day. Like, we were fine, had a great day at the mall. Came home, laid down. I was just like, oh, my leg hurts. He was like, yeah, right? I'm like, yeah, my leg hurts a bit. Gave me a glass of water. Within half an hour, I was crying. I was in tears. We were in the hospital, and I was in there for a week. Like, that's so, like, as you guys can see, it's very unpredictable. And because of that, when you're holding down a job and trying to get a career, some employers don't understand the fact that, you know, you have this and you can't control it that well. Like, you can do so much to control it, but at the same time, your body can still do what it wants to do. So because of that, if you have to miss work, you have to have employers that can understand that and know that you're not just, you know, making up excuses and you're still capable of doing your job. That's just one side to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of with sickle cell is that it does affect your body as a whole. So because your, I lost the word, guys, your bone marrow, thank you. Because your bone marrow is working so hard, it's in overtime all the time, your your other organs also tend to be overworked because of that. So that's your kidney, that's your liver, that is your heart. Everything is working a little bit more than it should or wants to. So there tends to be wear and tear on those parts of your body kind of as you age, because they're doing so much work that they really don't want to do. But that's another side effect of having sickle cell. Anything else for me to cover? So for me, I guess the best part of, I said best, yeah, but you know what, for me it is the best part of having sickle cell is that I've had to learn my own body a lot more and be in tune with my body a lot earlier in life, and I appreciate that because I know my body like clockwork. Like, I know when something's right and when something's wrong, and I'm so grateful for knowing myself that well. And for anyone out there who does have sickle cell, I'm sure you can relate to this. Like, you have to know your body because each person's case is so different. Everyone has different triggers. Everyone reacts differently when they are sick. Like, everyone is so different when it comes to this disease. And I've been blessed to know my body as well as I do, and to use that to avoid getting sick and to make the right decisions at the right times. Another thing is, when I do get sick often, guys, I don't like the hospital. Can I just tell you that? I don't like the hospital at all. Here are my reasons why I don't like it. They keep you in there for so long. Once I'm in there, I'm just like, man, my entire week is ruined. I don't like that. I don't like the hospital because I don't like the hospital. It's a hospital. I don't like it. I also don't like the hospital because I'm not in my bed. I'm sick and I'm not in my bed. You're in the hospital. The nurses come in every 2 to 3 hours. They're poking you. They're checking your blood pressure. So you never get enough sleep because they're waking you up every 2 or 3 hours. And it's just, and then you can't see people as much as you want. There's just too many restrictions. You can't eat what you like. I don't like the hospital. So personally, I always try to avoid it. Like, y'all can ask Dave this. He'll probably tell you, but when I do get sick, it takes a mountain to get me to the hospital. I'm like, nope, we're going to fight this out at home. We are not going. But I also know when to be smart, and every now and then I'm just like, babe, I'm sorry, we got to go. Like, I can't be here. I have to go to the hospital ASAP. Because, as I said earlier, if you don't go to the hospital, if the pain doesn't go down after a certain amount of time, then that means the blood is not declogging, and it could potentially get clogged up here. And as I said, we don't want that. So, gotta get to the hospital as early as you can. How to treat sickle cell. So, at home, I use, like painkillers really is the first step of action. So, natural remedies are, as I said, staying hydrated. Antioxidants are good for the body. They're good for the blood flow. And, just eating healthy and staying healthy as much as possible within your reach. Because, like, I can't work out as much as other people can because I'll get sick. Because when you're working out, oxygen levels are kind of going a lot more. So I tend to get sick if I'm working out too hard. Excuse me. So, just staying healthy as much as possible. And when you do find yourself, when you are sick, for me, my first step is I take a common, household painkillers, your Advils, your Tylenol. I take those first. Anyone out there who does have sickle cell, if you haven't tried this, I urge you to try it, if possible, is taking Advil instead of Tylenol. My doctor told me this a couple of years ago, and it's worked for me, so hopefully it works for you, but Advil has better blood flow. I don't know what it's actually called medically, but it helps your blood flow more versus Tylenol does something else. I can't remember. They work a little bit differently, and it makes Advil better for getting your blood to start flowing and get that oxygen. I've rambled a lot in this video, guys. I apologize. So I think I've covered all that I can think of right now. I'm sure if you guys have any questions, you can ask me below. I will be more than happy to answer them and tell you guys whatever else I haven't told you guys. One quick thing I'm going to say is that my reason for never making this public my entire life, really, until maybe about two or 3 years ago I became a little bit more vocal about it, is because I'm from a society, the Nigerian community, where we don't talk about sickle cell. Having sickle cell is a death sentence in I don't want to generalize too much, but it seems to be a prominent thing in the community that it's like, oh, you're gonna die. And that's not true. You can live. Like, no one can dictate how long someone's gonna live or die. That's up to the man above. So, because of that, it's like you don't tell people that you have it, because then, you know, they'll stay away from you and all of that. But you know what? I've come to realize that I got this. God gave this to me for a reason, and I've been able to live and tell my story and really be a good voice. So why not? Why be ashamed of it? Like, there's no reason to be ashamed. I didn't choose this. I didn't do something that let me have this. Like, I was literally born with it. My blood just, I was born that way. So I have nothing to be ashamed about. And that's why I'm here to share with you guys, because I'm not ashamed. I'm going to speak it loud and proud and help anyone out there that I can who might need help just dealing with their pain and other things they might have. So, I am Wemi, and I have sickle cell. Thanks for watching, guys.